The story of Journey to the West begins at Mount Huaguo, a strange island where the trees, animals, and even nature itself seemed to possess a touch of magic. At the top of the mountain stood a gigantic stone that had existed for a very long time. One day, the stone suddenly cracked open, and from inside emerged a stone monkey. What was remarkable was that even though it had just been born, it already appeared clever and aware. The monkey bowed to the four directions of heaven and earth. At that very moment, its eyes shot out two beams of light so powerful that they reached all the way to the heavenly court, startling the entire court of the Jade Emperor in the heavens, as a strange phenomenon had just appeared in the mortal world. After that, the monkey lived together with a troop of monkeys on Mount Huaguo, spending its days playing and exploring the mountains and forests. One day, the whole troop wandered to the front of a great waterfall, pouring down in a white torrent. Curious, one monkey shouted that whoever dared to jump through the waterfall and return safely would become the king of them all. Hearing this, the stone monkey did not hesitate at all. It leaped straight into the rushing water. Inside the waterfall, it unexpectedly discovered a vast and beautiful cave. There was an iron bridge stretching across, and behind it stood a stone dwelling built like a palace. Inside, there were even living spaces and all the necessary furnishings. The stone monkey went back out and called the entire troop to come and see. Seeing that the new place was both safe and spacious, the monkeys immediately moved in to live there. From that moment on, the stone monkey was honored as their leader and was called the handsome Monkey King. Under his guidance, the monkeys of Mount Huaguo lived peacefully in the cave for hundreds of years, like a small kingdom hidden away among the mountains and forests. But then, something happened that changed everything. One day, a monkey in the troop suddenly died. For the first time, the handsome Monkey King realized that no matter how joyful life on Mount Huaguo was, death was always waiting somewhere. That thought gave him the first real shock of his life. If every living creature must eventually die, then what meaning is there in being the king of a troop of monkeys? So the handsome Monkey King decided to leave Mount Huaguo. He set out to travel the world in search of only one thing: a way to escape the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. After many years of wandering, the monkey finally found a Taoist master living in seclusion on a mountain. That master was Patriarch Bodhi. Seeing that the monkey was clever and had great potential, Patriarch Bodhi accepted him as a disciple. He gave the monkey a new name, Sun Wukong. 7 years passed. During that time, Wukong learned all kinds of magical arts, and most importantly, the method to escape the cycle of life and death. Simply put, he had touched immortality. But when Wukong began to feel that life was becoming too easy and a little boring, Patriarch Bodhi suddenly poured cold water on his excitement. He told Wukong that this form of immortality was not truly safe. The heavenly realm had never accepted those who tried to escape the natural laws of life and death on their own. Because of that, every 500 years the heavens would send down 3 kinds of calamities to hunt such beings down. The first calamity was lightning from the sky. The second was heavenly fire that would burn everything. And the final calamity was being trapped inside a terrifying refining furnace. After hearing this, Wukong began to panic a little. But Patriarch Bodhi had already prepared a way to deal with it. He taught Wukong the 72 transformations, allowing him to evade the calamities sent by heaven. Because of this, Wukong grew stronger and stronger. There was only one small problem. He was still a monkey. Wukong often showed off his magic, played tricks, and caused trouble all over the Taoist temple. In the end, Patriarch Bodhi could not tolerate it anymore. He immediately drove Wukong down the mountain and warned him that from that moment on, he must never mention that he had once been his disciple. After that, Sun Wukong returned to Mount Huaguo, and this time he came back at just the right moment. During the time he had been away, the monkey troop had been constantly harassed by a demon named the Demon King of Havoc. This monster frequently came to attack and captured monkeys to take back as slaves. After hearing the story, Wukong became furious. He immediately headed straight to the Demon King's cave and gave the monster a serious beating. In the end, the Demon King was beaten badly, the captured monkeys were rescued, and they were brought back to Mount Huaguo. After that incident, Wukong realized that although Mount Huaguo had many monkeys, they had no real force to defend themselves. So he decided to build a proper army, and to have an army, they first needed weapons. With that in mind, Wukong flew straight down to the Dragon Palace of the East Sea to see if the Dragon King had any weapon he could borrow. When the Dragon King saw this monkey arrive, he was a little nervous, so he brought out all kinds of rare weapons for Wukong to try. Great blades, divine spears, and more. But Wukong shook his head at every one of them, because some were too light while others simply did not fit his hand. Finally, when he went deeper into the Dragon Palace, he discovered a gigantic iron pillar that had originally been used to stabilize the sea. The pillar was incredibly heavy, but it had magical power and could change its size. When Wukong picked it up and tried it, it felt perfectly balanced in his hand. So he immediately decided that from then on it would be his weapon. That weapon was the Ruyi Jingu Bung, the magic staff. After getting his hands on the powerful staff, Wukong asked the Dragon King if there was any fine armor that would match the weapon. At this point, the Dragon King only wanted to send this monkey away as quickly as possible, so he called his dragon brothers together, gathered their best treasures, and gave Wukong a set of extremely impressive equipment. With both staff and armor in hand, Wukong happily flew back to Mount Huaguo. As soon as he returned, he was so excited that he transformed himself into a giant, so the whole troop of monkeys could clearly see his new outfit. Every monkey stared wide-eyed at their king, holding a massive staff and wearing shining armor, looking incredibly majestic. However, this display of power accidentally attracted the attention of the demons in the surrounding region. From that moment on, all kinds of spirits and monsters began coming to make contact, and gradually they formed alliances with Mount Huaguo. And so, from an ordinary troop of monkeys, the place slowly grew into a fairly powerful demon force. For a time, the lives of Wukong and his monkeys passed by quite peacefully. One afternoon, while Sun Wukong was sleeping soundly on Mount Huaguo, two messengers from the underworld suddenly appeared and dragged him straight down to the realm of the dead. The moment he arrived, Wukong became furious. He marched directly to see the King of Hell to demand an explanation. But even the rulers of the underworld seemed rather confused, as if they themselves did not quite understand why this monkey had been brought there. Wukong then demanded to see the Book of Life and Death. After flipping through it for a while, he quickly found his own name on the list. Thinking it was simple enough, he casually crossed his name out, but he did not stop there. The monkey also erased the names of many other monkeys that he found in the book. Once he was done, Wukong swung his staff to clear the way and left the underworld as if nothing had ever happened. When he woke up back on the mountain, he excitedly told the entire troop that from now on the monkeys of Mount Huaguo had essentially escaped the Book of Life and Death. But while the celebration was happening down on the mountain, the heavenly court was in complete chaos. Complaints about this stone monkey were flooding in, enough to disturb the entire court. At first, the Jade Emperor planned to simply capture Wukong and lock him up to settle the matter. However, Taibai Jinxing proposed another idea. Instead of confronting him directly, it would be better to grant him an official position in heaven. That way, they could keep him under control, and it would also be easier to deal with him if he caused trouble. The Jade Emperor found the idea reasonable and agreed. Taibai Jinxing went down to Mount Huaguo to invite Wukong to the heavenly court. When the monkey heard that he would become an official, he happily went along right away. After arriving, Wukong was assigned the position of head of the imperial stables, called the Keeper of the Heavenly Horses. His main duty was to manage the horses of the heavenly court. At first, everything seemed fairly peaceful, but one day Wukong grew curious and asked some of the surrounding gods how important his position actually was. From that question, the truth slowly began to come out. It turned out that the position of Keeper of the Heavenly Horses was actually the lowest rank in the entire heavenly court. Realizing he had been looked down on, Wukong exploded with anger, grabbed his staff, left heaven, and flew straight back to Mount Huaguo, where he declared himself the great sage equal to heaven. When the Jade Emperor heard the news, he immediately sent heavenly troops down to suppress the rebellion, including Neja. But the result was the same for everyone. Whoever came ended up getting thoroughly beaten by Wukong. The Jade Emperor was furious and wanted to send a full army to deal with the monkey once and for all. But Taibai Jinxing calmly advised that instead of risking the heavenly army in a battle against an incredibly powerful immortal monkey, it would be better to simply grant Wukong a noble title as a formality and settle the matter that way. Sure enough, Wukong was completely satisfied when he returned to the heavenly court. Every day he slept, relaxed, and enjoyed himself while beautiful celestial maidens served him. However, the Jade Emperor still worried that sooner or later the monkey would get bored and start causing trouble again. So he assigned Wukong a task that seemed harmless but very time-consuming, guarding the peach garden of immortality. But asking a monkey to watch over a garden full of immortal peaches without eating any was clearly too much of a challenge. So Wukong casually ate one peach after another, making himself twice as immortal. The real trouble began when the Queen Mother of the West organized the Peach Banquet. Every year, 7 celestial maidens were sent into the garden to pick the peaches. Wukong immediately immobilized them with magic and disguised himself as an immortal Taoist who had been invited to the banquet. Before he even made it to the feast, the smell of wine attracted him. He began drinking cup after cup, making himself 3 times as immortal and completely drunk. While staggering around looking for a place to sleep, Wukong accidentally stumbled into the palace of Taishang Laojun, also known as Laozi. Seeing that the hall was empty, he walked straight into the alchemy room and discovered a whole supply of immortal elixirs. Naturally, he swallowed them all as well, becoming immortal for the 4th time. Only then did Wukong suddenly sober up and realize that what he had just done might not have been the smartest idea. So he immediately slipped away and rushed back to Mount Huaguo to avoid the consequences. After Sun Wukong caused chaos in the Heavenly Court, the situation quickly began to spiral out of control. Some reported that the immortal peaches had been stolen. Others complained that the banquet had been ruined. From the serving celestial maidens to the officials in charge of the heavenly wine, to gods of all ranks, everyone took turns going to the Jade Emperor to file complaints. The atmosphere in heaven was almost completely chaotic, and the heavenly soldiers were immediately ordered to capture the stone monkey. But the problem was that Wukong was simply too powerful. In a direct fight, almost no one could suppress him. At that moment, Guanyin Bodhisattva happened to visit the heavenly court to attend the peach banquet and heard the whole story. She then sent her disciple Musa down to Mount Huaguo to investigate the situation. But as soon as he arrived, he was beaten by Wukong and had to return to report what had happened. After hearing the report, Guanyin suggested someone who could match the monkey in battle. Erlang Shen, one of the top warriors of the heavenly realm. When the two finally faced each other, the battle was incredibly intense. At first, they fought hand to hand. Then the fight turned into a contest of magical powers, followed by both sides transforming into all kinds of different forms. They were almost perfectly matched, and even after a long fight, neither side could gain the upper hand. Just as the battle was reaching its peak, Taishang Laojun suddenly appeared, set a trap, and managed to capture Wukong. But the problem was that the monkey already possessed an immortal body. No matter how they tried to kill him, it did not work. In the end, the heavenly court decided to throw him into the 8 trigrams furnace and burn him for 49 days, hoping to destroy all the immortality elixirs inside his body. But the plan backfired. When the furnace was finally opened, Wukong was not only still alive, he was even stronger than before. He smashed the furnace apart, rushed out, and once again began wreaking havoc throughout the heavenly court. With no other options left, the Jade Emperor had to resort to the final solution, asking Buddha for help. The Buddha met Wukong and proposed a very simple challenge. If the monkey could fly out of the Buddha's palm, he would be granted his freedom. Hearing this, Wukong thought it was far too easy. He immediately leapt onto a cloud and flew straight ahead, all the way to the very edge of the universe. There, he saw 5 gigantic pillars that looked as if they were holding up the sky. Thinking he had reached the very end of the world, Wukong casually left his mark. He wrote a few lines on one of the pillars and even urinated there to mark his territory just to be sure. After that, he flew back to meet the Buddha and confidently said that he had flown an incredibly long distance. But when the Buddha gently opened his palm, the exact mark Wukong had just left was clearly visible on one of his fingers. Only then did the monkey realize that his entire journey across the universe had never actually left the Buddha's palm. Panicking, Wukong tried to run away, but it was already too late. The Buddha used his power to transform his 5 fingers into a gigantic mountain, pressing the monkey down beneath it. That mountain later became known as 5 Elements Mountain. Normally, with Wukong's abilities, a mountain like that would not be able to hold him for long. So the Tathagata Buddha also placed a magical sealing talisman on the top of the mountain to lock the monkey's power in place. And so Wukong remained trapped beneath it for 500 years, with little to do except lie there and wait for the day he would finally be released.